Hello friends, I hope you all are doing well. I, CA Pujan Kapadia, welcome you all to my today's lecture on the subject of mercantile law. I guess you are studying this subject for the very first time in your life. Let me tell you, this is one of the most technical subject that we are going to study in this coming semester. But at the same time, it is quite interesting because it is going to have a lot of practical implementation in your day-to-day life in present as well as in the near future. So today I'm going to touch the basic introduction of the topic mercantile law. The topics that we are going to cover today includes syllables, that is what all things we are going to deal with in this semester. Second is basic introduction, like what is law, why it is necessary to study the law. Third point is definition and meaning. We are going to study the definition of mercantile law. And the last part is sources of mercantile law, from where we are preparing the law. It will be studied in the last part of this lecture. So without wasting any kind of time, to directly start with the first part, that is the syllables that we are going to study in this semester. First unit is Law of Contract. Year is 1872. Just let me tell you friends that when we are studying any kind of law, it becomes inevitable to know the name of that particular law along with the year in which it was enacted. As a result of which, let's make a habit to learn the name of the law along with its respective year. So the first will be the Indian Contract Act 1872. I'm repeating once again, the Indian Contract Act 1872. The weightage of this unit is 30%. Now let's see what we are going to study in this particular unit. The first topic that we are going to deal with is definition and essential elements of contract. Let me tell you first, what is contract? Regularly, we keep on hearing that I have entered into a contract with my friend, I have entered into a contract with any other person. But what is contract in the eyes of law will be defined to you in this particular unit. The second part talks about essential elements. When can we say that a contract is a valid contract? There are certain points which are supposed to be fulfilled, that are supposed to be satisfied to name it as a valid contract. So in this first point, we are going to study two things. First is what is the definition in the eyes of law of the contract, and second is what all are the points which are essential elements to form a valid contract. Moving ahead, the second point is classification of contract. You are well aware that when it comes to classification, there are several bases on which we can classify anything. Similarly, we are going to study over here different bases of classification of a contract. A contract can be written, can be oral, a contract can be express, can be implied. Now, what is it all? We are going to deal it in that particular chapter. Moving ahead, the third topic under this unit is offer, definition, legal rules, and revocation. Friends, we are going to encounter many new words, being this a technical subject. As a result of which, I would just like to add on that whenever you are encountering any kind of new word, please make a record of the same in your book, as a result of which you can have a good knowledge when we are studying and using these words in our further studies. The third point talks about offer. Offer is basically nothing. If I want to sell my mobile phone, I would place it online and I would be making an offer on that online platform. This is nothing. It is just a offer. But what is the definition of offer? When can our offer be termed as a valid offer? What are the rules that we need to follow to make an offer? And last is revocation. That is how the offer stands cancelled. These topics will be dealt in the unit of offer. The next point is acceptance. I will continue with the same example. I have placed my mobile phone to be sold online. If I get a prospective buyer who is ready to purchase my same mobile phone in the condition that I have placed online, he is accepting to my offer. So what is basically the definition of acceptance and what are the legal rules of acceptance will be taken care of in this particular point. Next point is consideration. Consideration simply means as something in written. For example, if you are doing business, you earn profit. So we can say profit is nothing. It is a consideration of doing a business. Next point is capacity of parties. This basically is going to cover who are the persons who are capable or who are competent to enter into a contract. For example, if I am having a person who is of unsound mind, who is not having any kind of mental stability, do you think he is the right person to enter into the contract? Answer is of course no. As a result of which, under this topic, we are going to study who all are the persons who are actually competent, who are actually capable to enter into the contract. Next part is free consent. Free consent is basically talking about when a contract is made, it should not be made under any kind of force. It should not be made to any dominant position. It should not be made because of fraud. It should be free from all these evils. So we are going to deal with certain terms. It will be coercion. There will be undue influence. Don't worry as of now, students. These all are the new terms, but we are going to deal it in the near future. And the last part is legality of object and consideration. Whenever we are making the contract, we need to check that the purpose or the objective or the goal for which the contract is entered into should be lawful, should be legal. So this is the brief idea about the topics or the points we are going to deal with in our unit 1. I hope I am clear with the clarification of the contents of unit 1. Repeating once again, the name of the act is the Indian Contract Act 1872, the weightage for which is 30%. Let's move ahead. The second unit is again from the same act, that is the Indian Contract Act 1872, weightage of which is 25%. Broadly, we are going to cover 3 topics under this unit. The first topic is going to be performance of a contract. This is going to deal about how we are going to perform a contract. What are going to be the terms or what are going to be the points that we need to keep in mind to perform a contract. There is a huge list of points that we are going to discuss when we take this particular chapter. Next is discharge of contract. This is basically going to talk about when a contract is supposed to be termed as completed, when a contract is supposed to be termed as discharged. All the points, whether this discharge is valid or not, whether it is complete or not, whether it is lawful or not, all these points will be taken due care of in this particular unit. Last is remedies of breach of a contract. If I want to take an example, then I can say I have ordered an iPhone online, the cost of which was 60,000 rupees. When I received a packet of the same at my home, there was nothing, there was an empty packet. So I can say over here that I have contracted to buy an iPhone of 60,000 rupees, but at the same time, what I have received is nothing. So I can say the seller has breached the contract. That is, he has not fulfilled his terms to end the contract. As a result of which, what are the remedies that I have as a buyer to sue against the seller? So all these points are supposed to be covered under the unit 2. Again, the weightage of which is 25%. Moving ahead, unit 3. It is talking about special contracts. Under this unit, we are basically going to talk about 5 different types of special contracts. What are the characteristics? What is its meaning? Who are the parties to that particular contract, etc. These 5 topics are basically indemnity, guarantee, bailment, pledge, and agency. As of now, I'm not going in depth of all these topics because we are going to deal with it individually in their respective chapters. Again, take a note, the weightage of this unit is also 25%. So I can say the Indian Contract Act 1872 is something that you are going to study in depth in your semester 5. Moving towards the last unit, that is unit number 4. The weightage of it is 20%. In this unit, we are going to talk about intellectual property rights, which is popularly known these days as IPR. I hope you must be aware about the intangible assets because I am but sure that you might have learned about tangible assets and intangible assets in your accountancy. So basically what we are going to include in this chapter is first part is IPR in India, introduction and types. And in types, we are basically going to study 3 different types of intellectual property rights. I guess you have learned about all the 3 terms because they are much friendly enough to you. Because when it was asked in standard 12, name any intangible asset, you would have rightly said, sir, it is patent, copyright, trademark, etc. First topic that we are going to cover in this unit is patent. What is patent basically? When you are inventing something new, you got the right registered for that particular invention. This particular right is termed as the patent, under which we are going to study the meaning, salient features, remedies available to the patent owner. Second topic that we are going to deal with is copyright. When you are making something creative, if you want that no one should copy this particular thing, we take copyright for this same. Under this, we are going to study meaning. Second is term, that is the time period for which your copyright is going to stay valid. Third is what works are protected. That is, we cannot take copyright of each and everything, but there are certain works for which we can protect the same. So we are going to study which works are going to be covered under this particular topic. Next is who owes the right and the duration of that particular right. And last is fair use. It is important to use it in a fair manner. Last part that we are going to cover under unit 4 is trademark. Trademark is basically a special identity of your product or your process. We say in cricket that this is a trademark shot of a particular batsman. In trademark, we are basically going to study meaning, concept, and function. I hope I am clear with the unit 4, intellectual property rights, the weightage of which is 20%. Let us recall quickly all the 4 units. First is your law of contract, under which the first part was definition of a contract and the elements that make a valid contract. Then we studied about classification, offer, acceptance, consideration, that is something in written, capacity of parties, that is a person of unsound mind cannot enter into a contract. Next was free consent, that is contract should be validated freely. It should not be under any fraud, under any force, under any influence. And last is if you are entering into a contract, the objective and the consideration of the same should be legal. Second unit was basically focusing on the 3 major points. Performance of a contract, that is what all are the things that you are going to take care of while performing a contract. Second is discharge of a contract, that is when your contract is supposed to be told to be completed. And last is remedies of a breach of contract, that is my empty box iPhone wala example. What are the remedies that I am having if the other person is breaching the contract? Third unit basically talks about the spatial contracts, under which we are going to study 5 different types of spatial contracts. It is indemnity, guarantee, bailment, pledge, and agency. Last unit is going to focus on the intellectual property rights, the basic contents of which are going to be patents, that I told you, if you have invented something new, then you are going to take the exclusive right for that invention. Second is copyright, that is if you find that you have made something creative, you don't want to get the same to be copied by any other person, and you buy right for that particular thing. And the third is trademark. It is the unique symbol, a unique sign for your particular product or your process. I hope I am clear with the syllables. The syllables is quite lengthy, but trust me, it is interesting and at the same time fun reading and learning because we can easily relate it with our practical life. MLaw is basically going to be the subject which is a combination of theoretical reading, that is basically what is written in the act, along with various case laws or the practical examples that occur in day-to-day life. As we will be moving forward, we will understand that this, though being a technical subject, is going to be a very interesting one because we are easily going to relate the same with our day-to-day life. Moving ahead with the introduction part. Here I have defined what is law. I'm not talking as of now like what is mercantile law. I'm just generalizing the word and asking you what is law. As a normal person, I can say law can be different thing for different persons. Like for citizens, that is our normal layman, it can be a set of rules to obey. That is, if a legislator or any authority is making any law, for a citizen, it is as simple as that. That मुझे क्या करना है? मुझे बस उसको obey करना है, मुझे उसको follow करना है. For a citizen, it is nothing. It is just a set of rules that you are supposed to obey. Second is lawyer के लिए law क्या है? For him, it is a basic vocation. It is a profession because his entire livelihood is dependent on the knowledge of the law. For a lawyer, it is much more than what for it is a citizen, because for him, it is going to be a vocation. It is going to be a profession. Thirdly, for a legislator is someone who makes the law. जो law बनाता है, उसके लिए क्या है? For him, it is going to be a creation. And lastly, for a judge के लिए क्या होना है? For him, it is going to be the guiding principles to make a decision. We very well know that when a judge is announcing any kind of judgment, when he is passing any kind of judgment, he gives reference to the laws that are applicable to the particular case. So for a judge, it is necessary to have a thorough knowledge of each and every law. And the Contract Act that we are going to study in this semester is going to be applicable in most of the dealings that you do in your professional or the business life. So the syllabus of this semester is basically going to help you a lot in your practical life. I hope I am clear with what is law. As we have studied, for a different person, it is going to be different. Moving ahead to the introduction part itself. See, the law that we are going to study in India is not all of our creation. We have taken something from some of the successful laws. Like if something is popular or famous somewhere, easy to implement and better for all the citizens of our country, we have adopted something good from all the different maxims. The most ancient one being the Latin maxim. So we are going to find such words that may sound difficult to pronounce, but at the same time, if it is possible, we should learn the same. See, again, I'm telling, it is not compulsory to learn each and everything, but try to learn maximum thing because it will create a good impression when you are writing your answer. There is a Latin maxim that I have written over here. Ignorantia juris non excusat, or ignorantia legis neminem excusat. I understand it is difficult to pronounce it, but once you will go through it for 10 to 15 times, it will be easier for you to remember. Now let's see, what is the meaning of these words? It means ignorance of law is no excuse. Again, I'm reading the same line. Ignorance of law is no excuse. That is, आप ऐसा नहीं कह सकते हो कि मुझे तो पता ही नहीं था कि ऐसा कोई लॉ भी एग्जिस्ट करता है. I have taken a good example for the same, which I guess you might have also used in your life. When a policeman catches us when we are driving without a license, we cannot tell him कि मुझे तो ऐसा पता ही नहीं था कि लाइसेंस के बिना मैं कार ड्राइव ही नहीं कर सकता, right? Because it is implied that we are supposed to have the knowledge of the law of our countries. The same example is written and shown on your screen, that a car driver cannot make an excuse that he was not aware of the driving rules, that driving license is necessary to drive a car. Thus, it is important for us to know the laws of our country, because in any of the case, we can never ever make an excuse that I was not aware that such law existed and I can find a rescue. No. I need to compulsorily know what laws exist in my country. Now, if you are gaining this knowledge, it is going to be helpful for you personally, as well as you can be a professional and guide others by consulting them on this particular law subject. So till now, we have discussed two important things. First was your syllables, and second is an introduction under which we have covered two topics. First was what is law. We have studied for different person, the law is going to mean differently. So for citizen, it is like something to obey. For a lawyer, it was a profession. For a legislator, it was a creation. Like for a judge, it was a basis on which he will pass a judgment. Secondly, we have studied ignorance of law is not an excuse. We cannot take an excuse that मुझे पता ही नहीं था कि ऐसा कोई law prevail करता है. So it is necessary for us that we should be quite well aware of the law that exists in our country. Moving ahead, the definition and meaning of mercantile law. See, mercantile law is nothing. As a student, I can say I have just added one word, mercantile, to the law. But we need to understand that what do you mean by mercantile? Before reading what is written over here, I would like to draw the attention to the image I have placed on this slide. There are two pigeons. One is basically a student and one is basically a professor. The student is asking, what are the other words for mercantile? The professor is telling it can be something which is commercial, that is used in our day-to-day life. It may be anything related to trading, that is buying or selling anything. It may be related to trade of goods or trade of services. It can be anything related to merchant, a person who is doing any business. It may be economic, financial, sales, and fiscal. Fiscal is basically something related to taxation purpose. In short, if I am adding commercial activity, that is of purchasing and selling, of dealing into any goods or service, which can be economical, which can be financial, which can be related to sales, or which can be related to any taxation matters, all these words combinedly forms mercantile. So now I would like to read the definition which is written in the inverted commas at the top of the slide. Mercantile law can be defined as that branch of law which deals with the rights and obligations of mercantile persons arising out of mercantile transactions in respect of mercantile property. So I can say if we know four different words in this definition, then it is very easy to learn this definition. So again, I would repeat it as first thing is rights and obligation. Fine, that you can see over here, my cursor is moving, the rights and obligation of whom. Second word is of mercantile persons. Third, arising out of what? Arising out of mercantile transactions, and in respect of what? Mercantile property. Here property do not means your building or your any plot. Property means the ownership. Fine. So we are basically going to take resort to four important words. Rights and obligation. किसके? Of mercantile person. किसमें से आ रहा है? From a mercantile transaction. और किसके related है? From a mercantile property. This definition is given by Shri M.C. Shukla. Fine. This is the definition that you need to learn and prepare for your examination. I feel this is going to be easy if you remember the four important words: rights and obligation, mercantile persons, mercantile transactions, mercantile property. Now the question arises, who is a mercantile person? So I have written downwards, an individual, a partnership firm, or a company carrying on a business is a mercantile person. So there is no specific inclusion that he is included or she is not included. It is common. Any person who is carrying on a business can be called as a mercantile person. I hope I am clear with the definition of what is mercantile law. Any law which is related to business, I can say in general terms, and to be specific, I can say rights and obligations of a mercantile person arising out of mercantile transactions in respect of a mercantile property. Moving to the last part of the today's lecture, let's understand what are the sources of mercantile law. As I have told you, entire law of any country is not the sole creation of that particular country. Every country around the world adopt the good aspects of the law of some other countries. It is out of many things that collect together to form a law of any country. Similarly, in India also, our mercantile law is not only on based of Indian observation, it is a collection of many aspects that together forms the mercantile law. So what all are the things that are put in a basket to form a basket named mercantile law? The first thing that we have taken resort to is the laws in India. So from this, I like to mean that all the laws that are enacted in India, it can be with reference to anything. It can be related to consumer, it may be related to foreign exchange. What I have done is I have taken a good outline or a good knowledge of all these laws and collected it into a basket. Second is English mercantile law. I have taken a resort of mercantile law that is relevant in the land of England, as a result of which the certain good aspects that I can implement easily and in a feasible manner in our country, I have adopted those particular aspects from the English mercantile law. Third important thing is judicial decisions. Judicial decision means when any case is taking place in our country, the judge announces the judgment to that particular case. The decision that is passed by the judge is also taken into account while framing the mercantile law. And the last word is customs and usage. There are certain things that we see, that we do in our day-to-day life, then it becomes necessary to inculcate those things in the law. That is our regular customs and usages. So to cut it short, this topic is just for a reference of yours, as a result of which I would just request you to have a rough knowledge, a brief idea of all the four sources which have collected together, parts from which are extracted and collected in a basket to form a basket which is known as mercantile law. So the 4 points are laws in India. Second is English mercantile law. Third is judicial decisions. And fourth is customs and usage that is found in our day-to-day life. I hope I am clear with the lecture and the topics that I have covered today. Please take a note once again of all the contents that we have seen, because from the next lecture we are going to start with our syllabus. Yes, so we have not started with our syllabus yet. We have just taken a general overview, like what is the syllabus that you are going to deal with in this semester, what is the general meaning of law. Of course, ignorance of law, you cannot make an excuse of the same. Then after, what we have studied is basically your definition of mercantile law, and lastly we have studied the sources of mercantile law. Please be equipped with the knowledge of what we have studied today, so that we can start our journey, a fresh journey for your semester 5 with a new subject of mercantile law. I thank you all for your patient listening. Hope to see you soon in my upcoming lecture. Thank you.